Chapter 1. Enoch, the man who walked with God. Enoch was born into a restless world. The memory of Eden still lingered in old songs, but most people had turned their hearts toward fields, cities, and power. Some boasted of the walls they built, others of the weapons they forged, others of the cattle and land they owned. Success was measured in stone and metal, noise and numbers. Enoch moved quietly through that world. He worked, he married, he raised children like others did, but those who watched him closely sensed something different. While others worried about harvests and rival tribes, Enoch worried about his heart. At dawn, when mist still clung to the ground, he would slip away from the camp to stand on lonely hills and speak to the unseen God. He did not claim to hear voices every day, nor did he call attention to himself. He simply shaped his life around the question, what does God love and what does he hate? If a deal in the marketplace felt unjust, he walked away. If gossip began around the fire, he grew quiet. When someone was hungry, he shared his bread. People did not always understand him, but they could not deny that wherever Enoch went, peace seemed to follow. With time, the phrase, "He walks with God," began to spread, first as a whisper of admiration, then as a description everyone knew. Enoch did not walk alone. Somewhere in the ordinary rhythm of plowing, praying, eating, and resting, his footsteps synchronized with the will of the one who made heaven and earth. This is the man God chose to stand between heaven and earth when the watchers fell. Chapter 2. The Watcher's Oath on the Mountain. Far above the fields where Enoch lived, beyond the clouds, there were the watchers. Their task was simple, yet weighty. Observe the children of men, guard them, guide them, and report back. Age after age, they looked down and watched human life unfold. They saw children being born, mothers singing, fathers working, friendships forming around flickering fires. They saw tears shed at graves, hands raised in prayer, lovers clasping hands under the stars. At first the watchers watched as servants, untouched by what they saw. But somewhere along the line, for some of them, the watching turned into wanting. Their leader, Semyaza, felt it first. Night after night, as he looked down at human families, a strange hunger grew in him. Angels did not marry. Angels did not have children. They were pure spirit, created to serve. But Semyaza found himself imagining life in a human body, laughter echoing in a tent, a child running to meet him, warmth from a fire that was not just the fire of heaven. He tried to stamp out these thoughts. He reminded himself of his duty, of the boundaries set by the Most High. But desire, once nursed, does not easily die. Finally, he confided in the other watchers. "Let us choose wives from among the daughters of men," he said, "and raise children for ourselves. We will share our knowledge with them, and we will not be alone." A silence fell among the watchers. Some were shocked. Others were secretly relieved to hear their own forbidden longings spoken aloud. A few spoke against it. "If you alone do this," they warned, "the guilt will fall on your head. We will not follow you into such a fall." But Semyaza knew that sin loves company. "Swear with me," he urged. "Swear together, all of you, so that we shall share the same fate and that no one will turn back when the moment comes." On the summit of a great mountain, under a dark, star-filled sky, they made their choice. 200 watchers bound themselves with an oath. Once spoken, it hung heavy over them like chains they had willingly fastened around their own necks. That night, heaven gained no new songs, but the earth was about to gain new monsters. Chapter 3. Descent of the Watchers and the Birth of Giants. They came down from the heights like falling stars. For human eyes, it may have looked like a streak of light across the sky. For the Watchers, it was the crossing of a boundary they had never been meant to cross. When they reached the earth, they took on forms that people could see, tall, radiant, strange. Villagers stared as these beings walked into their settlements with a beauty and presence unlike anything they had known. The daughters of men saw them, and their hearts pounded. The sons of men saw them and felt a mix of fear and admiration. The Watchers chose wives, each taking a woman into his tent. At first, the people thought it was a blessing. "Heaven has come to us," they whispered. "They will teach us secrets and give us children of greatness." And teach they did. One Watcher showed men how to pull metal from ore, to heat it and shape it. Soon plowshares cut more deeply into the soil, but swords and spears also gleamed sharper than ever. Another taught women the art of cosmetics, how to tint the cheeks, darken the eyes, twist gold into hair, and metal into jewelry. Adornment brought joy at first, then vanity and competition. Other Watchers revealed the mysteries of the stars. They traced lines in the sky, naming constellations, explaining patterns and seasons. But mixed with the knowledge of navigation and harvest came forbidden arts, omens and astrology, the illusion that fate could be controlled or predicted. Every gift had a shadow. Knowledge that was meant to be revealed slowly, in a holy way, was poured out all at once into unready hands. Tools became weapons. Beauty became manipulation. Healing herbs were paired with spells and curses. The earth, once simple and rough, became sharp and dangerous. Then came the children. From the unions of Watchers and human women were born the giants, taller, stronger, faster than ordinary men. At first, the people adored them. They hunted with effortless skill, bringing home game that no one else could catch. In battle, they were terrifying, scattering enemies with a single charge. Songs were written about them. Children grew up wanting to be like them. Villages felt safe with a giant standing guard. But admiration quickly turned to fear. Giants ate more than normal men. When the land produced abundantly, they devoured it. When food ran scarce, their hunger drove them beyond all boundaries. They took what they wanted. Fields were stripped bare. Herds were slaughtered. When that was not enough, they turned on the people themselves. The earth darkened under their violence. Homes burned, families fled, laughter turned into screaming. The very soil seemed to drink blood. The air above once carried songs of gratitude. Now it vibrated with the clash of weapons and the cries of the dying. The old text says that even the land and the animals suffered under the weight of this corruption. The golden age the Watchers had promised had become an age of terror. Chapter 4. The Cry of the Earth and Enoch's Commission. The world does not suffer silently. Every injustice sends a sound up to heaven, unheard by many ears on earth, but never missed in the courts of the Most High. As cities burned and giants rampaged, the earth itself groaned. The cries of the oppressed rose like smoke. The holy angels, who had not fallen, watched all this with grief. They remembered their own vow to obey, their horror at their brother's betrayal. Finally, they went before the throne of God and spoke. "See what has happened upon the earth," they said. "Blood fills the land. The Watchers you appointed have left their proper place and have taught forbidden things. Will there be no answer to the cries of your creatures?" The answer was not delayed. judgment was coming, but God chose to send the decree not only through angels, but through a man who had walked faithfully with him, Enoch. One night, as Enoch slept in his tent, he felt the world fall away. He was lifted, carried across mountains and seas, beyond clouds and stars, until he stood before a blazing glory no human language can describe. He saw thrones, with a great throne at the center, flames and rivers of fire flowing before it. Around it were countless beings of light, and in their midst the Ancient of Days, the Holy One. Enoch fell on his face, his whole body shaking. "Enoch, son of Jared," a voice said, "stand and hear." The voice was like many waters, and yet as clear as a single drop. Strength flowed into his legs, and he stood, trembling. Enoch was told of the sins of the watchers, how they had abandoned their station, corrupted humanity, and fathered giants, whose violence had filled the earth. He was shown visions of what must come next. Giants turning on one another in savage wars. A great flood rising to wash away the ruin. Watchers bound in deep pits, held in darkness until the final judgment. "Now," said the Lord, "go to the watchers who have sent you. Tell them that their petition will not be granted. Tell them that they shall see the death of their sons, and that they themselves will be imprisoned until the end." When the vision ended, Enoch woke on the earth, but he was not the same. The watchers had already approached him once, fearful and guilty, asking him to intercede on their behalf. They had hoped that the man who walked with God could soften the judgment. Now he knew the answer, and it was unchangeable. Chapter 5. Enoch confronts the watchers. The place where the watchers gathered was rugged and bleak. High rocks, deep caves, a landscape bowed under their guilt. Enoch climbed there with heavy steps. He had no sword, no army, no dazzling light about him. He carried only a message. The watchers saw him approach and rose to meet him. These once radiant guardians now looked like shadows of themselves. Their faces, once full of calm authority, were lined with fear and sleeplessness. "Have you brought an answer?" Semyaza asked. His voice was tight, straining to sound hopeful. Enoch looked at them. His eyes held no hatred. He had seen their beginning, their fall, their ruin. What he felt was sorrow, sorrow for what they had done, and sorrow for what must now be. "Yes," he said, "I have stood before the Holy One. I have heard the decree. Your petition will not be granted." The words hit like blows. A ripple of horror went through them. "You shall have no peace," Enoch continued, his voice steady, his words like stones dropping into deep water. "You will witness the slaughter of your sons, the giants you brought into the world. They will turn their swords on each other, and none will remain. You will be bound, chained in the valleys of the earth, in darkness, until the great day of judgment. There you will remain, seeing but not stopping the ruin that has come, awaiting the final sentence." Some of the watchers began to weep, beings of such power reduced to shaking. Others clenched their fists, staring at the ground, rage and despair battling inside them. But none of them argued. Deeper than their pride, they knew the decree was just. Their oath on the mountain, which once seemed like freedom, now lay on them like a curse they could never shake. Enoch turned and left. He had delivered the message. Behind him, the watchers stood on their desolate mountain, staring into a future that led only downward. In front of him lay his people, men and women who needed to understand what was about to happen and what it meant. From that day on, Enoch's voice carried a different weight. He did not just warn of judgment. He spoke as someone who had seen its machinery set in motion. He warned his people that God sees the hidden things, that borrowed power always demands a price, and that injustice does not stand forever. To those terrified by the giants and the chaos, he promised that the Holy One had not abandoned the world. A reckoning was on its way. Chapter 6. The giants' war and the flood time passed, and Enoch's words began to unfold. The giants' hunger grew monstrous. They had devoured the land's produce and drained the herds. Their once admired strength became a terror, even to those who had once sung their praises. When food ran out, they did what predators always do. They turned on each other. Battles between giants shook the earth. Great bodies clashed, weapons shattered, boulders were thrown like pebbles. Whole regions became graveyards. People watched from hiding places, caves, forests, distant hills, as their former protectors tore each other apart. Every clash, every scream, every fallen giant was another line in the fulfillment of the judgment Enoch had spoken. Slowly, the giants' numbers thinned. The few who survived these wars staggered through a ruined world. Famine, disease, and fear finished what their swords had begun. Then the sky began to change. Clouds gathered, thicker and darker than usual. Rain started, not as a passing storm, but as a relentless, pounding torrent. At the same time, the deep fountains of the earth burst open. Water rose from below and fell from above. Fields disappeared. Houses were swept away. Trees vanished under surging waves. The high places where the watchers had once met were now hidden in storm and rising sea. The last traces of the age the watchers had corrupted were washed from the earth. Hidden in deep places, in pits and caverns far from the light, the watchers were bound, kept for the final day when all accounts would be settled. The giants were gone, their names now curses instead of praises. The world was cleansed, ready for a quieter kind of life to begin again. Enoch's warnings had come true, but his own story on earth was moving toward a very different end. Chapter 7. Enoch's Heavenly Journeys. Even before the flood, Enoch had been a man of visions. One quiet night, he left his tent to look at the stars, as he often did. The sky was a dark sea scattered with lights, each steady in its course. He had watched those constellations many nights, sensing that they moved according to a pattern he could not yet see. That night, the pattern opened. A breeze stirred the grass at his feet. The air grew heavy and bright. At first, he thought his eyes were failing him, but the light thickened into a soft brilliance descending like a veil. From within it, figures emerged, tall, radiant, clothed in garments like woven lightning. "Enoch, son of Jared," one of them said, "do not be afraid." His knees shook, but he stood. This was not his first encounter with beings from above, yet each time felt like the first. Their presence was frightening and strangely familiar at once. "The Holy One calls you," the angel said. "You must see what is prepared and learn what is hidden, so that you may teach those who dwell on earth." Before Enoch could reply, his weight left him. The ground fell away. Wind roared past his ears, but there was no pain, only the sensation of being carried upward with immense speed and perfect safety. The stars he had just been gazing at seemed to rise and then pass beneath him until they too were far below. They came to the first heaven. There the air was brighter, clearer, filled with a faint humming, like distant song. Enoch saw structures that resembled cities made of light, arches, columns, halls, not built of stone, but of something that shimmered like crystal and flamed together. Angels moved through them in ordered patterns, each intent on a task. "What is this place?" Enoch asked. "This is a lower heaven," his guide answered, "where those appointed to oversee the world carry out their duties. Here they receive commands and send forth orders about seasons, about nations, about the rise and fall of kings, about the paths of rain and the boundaries of the seas." He watched as messages flowed like streams of fire from one group of angels to another, then descended toward the earth. Golden tablets were passed from hand to hand, glowing with living words, events that had not yet happened, prayers that had just been spoken on earth. Enoch reached toward one, but his guide stopped him gently. "You are here to see and hear, not to interfere." They rose higher. Chapter 8, The Places of Souls and the Storehouses of Nature. In another realm, Enoch saw no fields, no houses, no familiar landscapes. Instead, there were vast valleys and carved chambers in a gray, luminous world. 4 great hollow places opened before him, side by side. Each had its own weight, its own atmosphere. "What are these?" he whispered. "These," the angel said, "are where the spirits of the dead are kept until the day of judgment." He pointed to the first hollow. A gentle, peaceful light rested there, and Enoch felt a deep sense of rest. Here dwell the spirits of the righteous, those who suffered for what is right, who called on the name and did not turn back. They wait in hope. They know their vindication will come. The second place felt unsettled. Enoch heard low murmurs, the voices of people who knew they had done wrong but hoped for some mercy they could not yet name. "These are those who did not follow the path of righteousness and yet were not fully hardened in cruelty," the angel said. "They await a judgment they dimly fear but do not fully understand." The third hollow pulsed with heavy gloom. Cries seeped from its depths like smoke. Enoch shuddered. "Here are the spirits of those who delighted in bloodshed, who preyed on the weak without remorse. They know what they did. They know what is coming. Their waiting is already a kind of judgment." The fourth place was different, empty but prepared, like a room waiting for guests. "This," the angel said softly, "is reserved for what the Holy One has yet to reveal. Not everything has been shown, even to us." Enoch felt a chill, but also comfort. The griefs and injustices he had seen on earth were not forgotten. Every life, every act of cruelty, every faithful tear was accounted for in a story larger than he had imagined. They rose again, beyond clouds and storms, into regions where the forces of nature were stored like treasures. He saw vast chambers filled with snow, piled in glowing drifts. "These," the angel said, "are the storehouses of snow, reserved for times and seasons, for gentle winters, and for days of judgment." In another place, huge vaults held hailstones, each like a clear stone with frozen fire inside. These will fall when commanded, sometimes to water the earth, sometimes to strike nations, sometimes as signs that the Holy One has spoken. He saw chambers of winds, torrents of air waiting to be unleashed to stir seas, topple forests, or carry seeds across continents. He saw the boundaries of oceans, where they were told, "Thus far shall you come, and no farther." With each new sight, Enoch's understanding deepened. What seemed on earth like weather or luck was, at a deeper level, carefully ordered, restrained, and directed. Chapter 9. The Paths of the Lights and the Throne Above. All next, Enoch was taken to see the beginning points of the great lights of heaven. He saw immense gates at the edge of the world, openings in the firmament through which the sun entered and departed. By day the sun moved in a great arc, pouring out light and heat over land and sea. By night it retreated through hidden paths, circling back to its starting place so it could rise again in its appointed time. The sun follows a precise law, the angel told him. It does not wander as it pleases. Its path, its rising and setting, its seasons of strength and weakness, these have all been fixed by the Creator. The moon, too, had its courses. Enoch watched it wax and wane, swelling with light, and then shrinking like a breathing ember in the sky. Angels measured its phases, marking feasts and signs, counting days and months. "What if they stray?" Enoch asked softly, remembering the watchers who had left their place. "If a star or luminary departs from the order set for it," the angel replied, "it faces judgment as well, for everything in heaven and on earth is accountable to the one who set its path." The thought shook Enoch. If even stars and suns were held to account, how much more were humans and angels responsible for their choices? Finally, he was carried to a place where words failed him. Light surrounded him, brighter than any sun, yet it did not hurt his eyes. The ground beneath him was like polished crystal, burning with fire from within. Towering columns of flame and light rose on every side, forming a vast hall. At the far end stood a throne. Flames circled it. Streams of fire flowed out from before it. Thunder and music mingled in the air. Angelic beings beyond number stood in ordered ranks, shining like stars. Some sang, some bowed, some covered their faces with their wings. All their attention was focused on the one seated on the throne. Enoch could not fully describe that figure. Later he would say it was like a great glory, brighter than the noonday sun, clothed in light, with a face no mortal could gaze upon for long. Waves of holiness rolled out from the throne, making the very air tremble. He fell on his face. A voice spoke, not loud, yet it filled everything. "Enoch, son of man, stand. I will speak with you." Strength flowed into him again. He stood, shaking. Before the throne he saw books, great open records filled with living writing. In them were the deeds of nations, the secrets of hearts, the rise and fall of kings, the prayers of widows, the faithfulness of the hidden righteous, and the cruelty of the unrepentant. "These are the books of the living and the dead," the voice said. "Nothing is forgotten. Your world passes like a shadow, but your choices echo here. I have shown you the places of souls, the storehouses of the elements, the paths of sun and moon, that you may know. Everything is known, weighed, and ordered." Enoch's thoughts raced back to his own people, petty arguments around fires, unfair measures in markets, secret kindnesses no one saw, proud rulers who thought themselves untouchable. For the first time, he saw how all of these scattered moments fit into a single vast account held before one judge. "You will return," the voice said, "and you will tell them what you have seen. Tell them that the world is not abandoned. Tell them that their deeds matter, that there is a day appointed when wrong will be answered and right will be rewarded. Tell them that while there is time, they should turn from violence and deceit and walk in the light." "I am only a man," Enoch said softly. "Who will listen to me?" "Those who love truth will listen," the voice replied. Those who are wise will consider. The rest will understand when the day comes. Your task is to speak, not to control who hears. Chapter 10, Return to Earth and Enoch's Departure. In an instant, the brilliance dissolved. Enoch felt himself falling gently and found his feet again on familiar ground. The same stars shone overhead, but they no longer felt distant or random. Each one now seemed like a faithful servant, moving in a carefully set path. The camp lay quiet. Fires burned low. People slept, completely unaware of the journey their neighbor had just taken. Animals rustled softly in their pens. Everything looked small and fragile, but to Enoch, none of it felt insignificant. The same God who ruled the storehouses of snow and the paths of the sun also watched over these tents and these hearts. From that night onward, Enoch spoke differently. His warnings about justice and judgment carried the weight of what he had seen. He comforted those who feared that evil would rule forever, telling them of the resting places of the righteous and the books where their deeds were written. He taught that the world was not an accident, but a carefully ordered creation, and that the one on the throne would in time set all things right. Some believed him. They straightened their lives, slowed their anger, loosened their grip on power, and treated others more gently. Others laughed, calling his visions dreams and his warnings exaggerations. But Enoch had walked in realms where laughter and disbelief could not reach. He knew what he had seen. Years passed, the giants fell, the flood came, the watchers were bound. And then one day, Enoch simply was not there anymore. The people looked for him, but found no body, no grave. The story spread that Enoch had walked with God and then was taken, not tasting death as others did, but passing directly into the presence of the one he had sought all his life. His journeys, his warnings about the watchers, and his visions of the heavens became part of the deep memory of his people, a testimony that behind the visible sky lies a vast, ordered reality, and that the God who rules it all is both just and attentive to the smallest life. For more stories that can help you relax, don't forget to like and subscribe.